Okay. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Great Tree Zen Women's Temple. Our speaker today, her talk is how can our desires be joy filled? Susan Lamb. Teijo, would you have the opening sutra, please?
An unsurpassed, penetrating, and perfect Dharma is rarely met with, even in 100,000 million kalpas. Having it to see and listen to, remember and accept, I vow to taste the truth of the Tathagata's teaching. And I just want to mention that this is a long time study on desire that Susan's been working on, and I think she's trying to kind of bring it into a written document. You've been writing a lot about it, right? Okay, so why don't you go ahead and
do that?
yeah.
Okay.
We're going to do the bio.
Oh, how about the Dana statement?
Oh, the Dana statement and then the bio.
Okay. Brief word about Dana. In Buddhism, when Zen practitioners share their understanding of the teachings and practice, it is offered freely as a practice of Dana Paramita. Dana is a Pali word that means generosity or to give freely, and this practice is done without expectation of getting something in return. This is the spirit of speaking about the Dharma. Other ways to practice Dana is to offer support to those who share the teachings, to support places of spiritual practice, and to give without judgment or expectation when opportunities arise. And Susan, where would you like your Dana sent?
I would like it sent to Great Tree.
Okay. Then you need to go to greattree.org and follow the donate path. All right, now the bio. Susan holds a PhD in clinical psychology from Vanderbilt University. She was a practicing psychotherapist for more than 40 years. For more than 2 decades, the topic of desire on the path has been a focus of her attention. Susan has practiced with Teijo since the 1990s and has been a supporter of Great Tree since its beginning. In her Savannah community, her sanga is a group of associates of the Sisters of St. Joseph. Welcome, Susan. It's good to see you.
It's very good to you. And I appreciate Teijo mentioning that I'm trying to bring this interest in and study of desire into a written document. And so my opportunity to speak here today is a chance to work with a part of this topic that has been a stopper for me. It has slowed me up on many occasions. I will mention that, early on and first looking at desire and what it can offer us, I discovered that it really can guide us and sort of get us out of the holding pen or get us on the on-ramp to be moving in our lives as we are trying to create what we desire. We quickly run into the patterns inside us that would stop us. And those patterns are the stuff that we, of course, want to dissolve in our spiritual practice. But I noticed that there are certain categories of desires that seem particularly difficult to create, and they're even hard to continue to approach because we have so much fear and disbelief about them. And they tend to be the long-term desires. The one that I kept running into was the desire to create and sustain a life partnership, a romantic partnership, lifetime friendships, special friendships. And I have discovered recently that that applies also to other long-term projects like completing a book, completing a dissertation, raising healthy, happy, functional children, though we don't get the choice usually to walk away and not work with that. We sometimes don't bring the full light of our consciousness to it because we have so many fears about it. And my most recent one is adopting a badly abused dog, a little beagle coon dog mix who came into our lives not quite a week ago. And, to not be slowed down in bonding with her by the fears that, oh, this isn't going to work, because she's very difficult. So when I was talking with several friends, I retired 7 years ago, but still like to talk to friends about these things. And in the last 6 months, I talked to a couple of different friends who wished that they could create this kind of life partnership. And it seemed to me that a very good step toward it was really creating and maintaining a love relationship with life that was full of energy. But when I would talk with them about that possibility, I have to tell you, I was met with blank stares that did not make sense to people. So I realized, okay, this is going to have to be broken down even more. And then as I started being aware that we're talking about all long-term projects that require skills that we don't have in the beginning, I thought, okay, what we need here is for the joy and desire, because, that's why we head toward what we desire, is the belief that it will bring more of the fullness and joy of life to us. And sometimes in our spiritual teachings and practice, we assume that's just a sort of stupid idea, but maybe it's not a stupid idea. It's just that we have to have patience and be able to head toward these things that we want with full consciousness. And when we are able to create them, to stay in full consciousness and discover what the next one is. It's not that any one thing is going to bring us all the joy that we want in life. So I tried to break down even further what it is that is the step in desire and consciousness toward manifesting these things. And I had to go back to the myth that I have worked with a lot over these years. And that's the myth of Shiva and Parvati, which I will review. We talked about it a year ago. It begins with Shiva, who is the god of consciousness, in complete repose, legs crossed in meditation pose on the side of a mountain. And he's peaceful, all is well, but trouble is brewing miles away where a young goddess, Parvati, is being born. And she, from her very infancy, is having dreams of this figure who is on the side of the mountain. And all through her childhood, she continues to have these dreams. And finally, as she comes of age, she calls a Kama, who that's I guess in our culture, that would be like a Cupid, but it's basically Kama means desire. So she calls this being who is to help other beings create from their desires. And she describes this dream, and he says, oh, I know who that is. That's the god Shiva, the god of consciousness. He doesn't mention that he's also the god of destruction. But he says, I'll take you there. So he takes Parvati to Mount Kailas, where Shiva is deep in meditation. He has Parvati wait over behind a rock, and he approaches Shiva and says, I brought Parvati to you. She has dreamed of you since her infancy. Clearly, she is meant for you. Now, that's an interesting statement in itself. Not just you are meant for her, but like what she desires is calling her to it. I'm reminded of what Teijo said last week about nirvana, that we long for this oneness, the experience of this oneness, because in fact we are one and we long for what is. And in the same way, Parvati, who is the symbol of desire, longs for consciousness, which in this case is Shiva. So Shiva looks up from his deep meditation and says, what? You would tempt me with desire? And immediately he issues from his third eye a bolt of lightning that reduces the Kama to ashes. Parvati comes running and saying, what have you done? He was just trying to help me. And Shiva explains who he is, that he is the god of consciousness. He is not to be troubled by desire. And of course, we could say the same thing about ourselves. We may long to just be peaceful, but because we have these desires, there's more to our lives than just being peaceful. There is all the growth and the expansion and the dissolving that comes in meeting what is ours to do. But at this moment, he's saying, no, I don't want anything to do with you. And Parvati says, well, okay, if you don't want to relate to me, I will just be beside you and I will imitate all that you do. Whatever practices you're doing, I will do. And she proceeds to do that. And because she is particularly inclined in these ways, she quickly masters the practices that take others long, long times, lifetimes. And you can just see them on the mountain, not particularly relating to each other, but doing these practices. And a group of celestial beings become very concerned, and they come and they stop them and they say, stop, you're heating up the known universe. We're afraid you're going to destroy it. And Parvati, who is very compassionate, says, okay, I'll cease. I will just abide here with Shiva. And that too, we know that we have fears that our known universe will be destroyed as we move toward the consciousness that we desire and toward the other objects that we desire. So she abides with him there and he with her. And of course, she's always known that she longed for what he offered. But he then discovers that she brings a kind of energy and joy into his space, into his being, that where he has been inert consciousness, now that consciousness is filled with energy and joy. So he says to her, what can I give you? You're giving me so much. And she says, all I want is to be joined with you forever, to be married to you. And he agrees to this, and they approach her parents, who have some considerable resistance to this match, but it's overcome by important things. And so the marriage takes place. And I will mention that Shiva invites his friends, many of whom are ghosts and goblins, because remember, he's the god of consciousness, and he accepts all. He wants to explore everything. He doesn't turn anything away unexplored, but he does tell them to behave well at the wedding. And so they go off then, once the marriage is done, they go off to consummate their union back on Mount Kailas. And as you would guess, as they consummate their union with great rapture, again, the celestial beings interrupt them, saying, stop, you're going to destroy the universe. And they cease, but a drop of their combined fluids seeps through a crack in the universe to be nurtured by the Ganges River, where worshipers are always present, and cooling the waters, which cools this drop, and it is nurtured by their devotion until it becomes a guide for beings in the final stages of their spiritual progress. And this this inevitability, this whole notion that yes, we'll be interrupted in our union of consciousness and desire, but that something seeps through, something is created that can be nurtured by our devotion, our gratitude. So you can see where I kept getting stopped, because I kept running into people's long-term desires that were not only not being manifested, but they were clearly not joyful. It was creating the suffering that the Buddha tells us that desire creates. So what is this inevitability then? So I began to work with breaking down this union of desire and consciousness into smaller steps. And if you're game, we will, in the next few minutes, doing some practices so that you can get a sense of these steps, and hopefully let me know what your experience is. So we'll start with desire, and I want to ask you to bring to mind a desire that has been difficult to manifest and difficult to even approach because of fear and disbelief, probably. The fear that it can't be created, the disbelief that it can be created. There may be several that come to mind. And if so, choose the one that you have fear and disbelief that overcome the joy and desire. So take a moment to hone in on such a desire. And I know that you are experienced practitioners, so let yourselves notice the sensations that go with the desire. We're not gonna send fear and disbelief away, just like Shiva didn't, but we're gonna focus on the desire itself. You can always come back to fear and disbelief. So notice where in your body there are sensations that go with this desire. It may be the movement of energy. It might be a sense of fullness. Could be in the heart, could be in the forehead, could be in the lower body, or all of them. Send the breath into these sensations to allow a level of intensity. And then for this time, remove any focus on the object of the desire, what it is that you want, and instead just feel something more like the essence of desire. And notice where that is in your body. Notice what that energy is like. Again, feed it with the breath. And then, because this desire tends to be an energy, let's just invite that energy to move beyond the boundaries of what we usually think of as our bodies, just to move on out. And then we're going to just come back to each other. And I'd like to just take a minute here before we go to consciousness to just remember that we have some other tools that we can use to help us believe that we can move toward our desires and make and meet the challenges with our consciousness. And those are our words that we can remind ourselves of the way we grow in skills as we keep coming back to what we desire. Also, our images. I notice some people, when they start to do this work with their desires, images immediately come that can be helpful. But even if they don't, we can, for example, see ourselves growing in strength or skillfulness in the ways that we have in other realms in our lives. And then we're going to turn our attention to consciousness. And you can do that in your own way of coming back to awareness with a few moments of your Zazen practice. Or if you want to listen to my voice, the way that many of us can be aware of awareness is to start out again being aware of body sensations, noticing what the breath feels like, what our sitting posture feels like, noticing what we see, what we hear. And then noticing awareness of awareness. What is this light that we turn onto our sensations or onto our thoughts? That mysterious awareness. So, in this union of consciousness and desire that is inside us, return to the desire that we started with. The sensations of that desire. And letting go of the object of the desire again. Be with more the essence of desire. And now you have both the essence of desire and this mysterious awareness, even the awareness of awareness. And let them abide with each other. Invite yourself to know what that union is like inside you. And remember the part of the myth that has the drop making its way through a crack in the known universe to be nurtured by devotion. That whole notion of inevitability of creation as you bring desire and consciousness together, as they come together. And for a moment, just wonder what might be slipping through the cracks. And you have your wonderful practice of bowing. So you know what that feels like to bow in devotion. Bowing in devotion to what is slipping through, which, probably much of the time we have no idea what it is. And then let's bring ourselves back to each other, to your sangam. And I thank you for your attention and your willingness to try this out. And I am ready to hear from you. I would love to hear what your experience was, what questions you have, whatever you'd like to say. Thank you. Yes.
Sure. Well, where I ended up is the essence seemed to be about self-esteem.
Ah,
Um, but then I realized I measure self-esteem by other people's reaction to me,
mhm.
or opinion of me, which seems like a very
Shaky.
shaky place to be. So, yeah, thanks for leading us through that. But that's where I kind of ended up.
Mhm. So that was when you looked for the essence of desire, you ended up at self-esteem, and
That's what I want. I want self-esteem.
yeah, that's the object of your desire. And I don't know, I may be forcing something here, but maybe what slipped through the cracks was a sense of how shaky that is, and how there's something. I have this image of Shiva on the mountaintop where there's something so steady and peaceful there that it's like that desire for self-esteem probably longs for that steadiness to not have to depend on how other people are reacting to us. Yeah. Thank you.
Mysterious consciousness. Did you say mysterious consciousness? Is that what you? Is that the
I'm sorry.
term you? Did you use the term mysterious consciousness? Right?
This
Mysterious.
mysterious consciousness. Yes. Yes.
Okay. What I was wondering is that, would you say that that would be the same as um, facing one's fears, kind of putting oneself into a situation where one would be willing to explore one's fears.
Okay, so there was one word I still didn't catch, where one would be willing to explore one's
Fears.
spirit.
Fear. I wonder what the problem is. Oh, the non-original sound. Make it original. Let's see.
I somehow I get an echo that keeps me from really hearing that word.
I'll put it into chat.
Okay. While you're doing that, I guess I use the word mysterious because I have always thought, what a strange thing that, I guess we tend to think of ourselves as flesh and blood, and that is this consciousness that goes with that. Okay, so have you written it in the chat? It isn't showing up in my chat.
Maybe you could hear, you seem to hear Cliff okay. The word was fears, fear.
Fears. Okay. Okay. So, yes. So the question then was, is consciousness, the way I'm using the word, the same as facing one's fears? Is that right, Teijo?
Look in the chat. I wrote it in the chat.
And for some reason, it's not showing up in the chat.
Okay. Oh, this is a direct message. That's why. Okay, I have to send it to her.
So, Anne, as I restated the question, was that as you heard it?
Did that sound right to you, Teijo?
Was that the same
I
question?
said mysterious consciousness, but yeah, otherwise that was right. I put it in the chat again. I think it went to Susan.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, here it is. Exploring one's fears. Is this the same as mysterious consciousness? Well, to me, it is part of mysterious consciousness. Like, I don't know. I don't know if other people find consciousness to be as mysterious as I do, but that we can know what's going on around us. That is, to me, that is just so amazing when it looks like we're somewhat inert, but there is this mysterious consciousness. And yes, we can explore our fears through that consciousness. Yeah, I'm sorry that was so hard, Teijo. Yes. Lisa.
I'm curious in that, let me turn off this little heater. Um, you talk about like that, the awareness of being aware.
Mhm.
And I'm dealing with an issue that it's my desire to be free of addiction, of an addiction that I'm struggling and have been for a while. And that I'm aware of the awareness of what is unfolding. I'm conscious of it. I am experiencing all of that, and yet still succumb to, the use of what I do. And so that's where I'm trying to create that ability to, circumvent the outcome, like change the outcome. And I'm trying to, in those moments of, is there fear of the unknown? Is there, is it fear? Is it just because it's such an inert pattern? Is it just that it's this behavior that, there's something, what's the obstacle of breaking that?
Mhm, mhm.
And it does create a lot of suffering. So when you talk about like bringing joy into desire, I guess for me right now, I don't see the joy. It's
Mhm.
it's the it's pain and suffering.
Yes. So, one of the things that, of course, there are various ways of working with desires, but one of the pieces of it, as one is tempted by the pattern, whatever it is, to ask, what is the state of mind? What is it that I'm after here? And of course, it's bound to be something pleasurable, right? It's, even though there's suffering attached to it, there also is some relief, some release, and inviting that state of mind through our consciousness.
Mm.
And I know, the reason that I think some people find the 12-step group so helpful. It's not just the steps themselves, but it is the group itself, and the pleasure, the joy of connecting, even around something that's so hard. Um, it's hard to work with desires, what we don't want to do. It's easier to work with the desires of what we want, because not wanting to do something doesn't have necessarily a lot of joy in it.
Mm.
Is that your experience? Yeah.
Right, right.
Yeah.
And
So
yeah,
to find the state of mind that perhaps is associated with the
Mhm.
addicted pattern. And I don't mean to make it sound overly simplistic, because I know
Yeah,
uh, what a struggle it is.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for that question. And, I hope that you can find the positive form of the desire. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I appreciate that in terms of, yeah, to focus in on what is it that, what is the state of mind that I'm reaching for, that the substance brings me to,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
to to see where that can be met in another way.
Yeah. And sometimes it's in another physical outward activity. And sometimes it's a turn inside
Yes,
that, like, what I want is to feel in a state of love, for example.
yes.
And do I know how to do that? Can I find that inside me right now? That it's maybe not at the end of the addictive pattern or at the end of a long road, but right here. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
Maybe it'll slip through.
That- and that I mean, this is perfect timing. I can't that I tuned in today for this. Because this that fun, where is that turn? You know, what is it? And to try and look to see yeah, what is my desire? What is my outcome? And how to achieve that without regret and without sadness and you know
Shame.
shame and embarrassment and all of that comes the next morning,
Yeah.
you know, and knowing it's coming the next morning and still, like
Right.
so
It's telling.
yeah, yeah. So well you've given me some avenues to think of and I appreciate that greatly. Thank you very much.
We have a few more minutes.
So I guess no one has anything to say. You've said it all.
Oh, thank you. Hardly.
I know you got a whole book inside of you. So let's just finish up with giving back the merit. Thank you so much. This was
Thank
really, really beautiful. Thank you. May the merit of this practice
May the merit of this practice
benefit all beings
benefit all beings
and bring peace.
and bring peace.
Amen. Thank you.
Thank you.